Coastal Carolina takes the ball, marches to the goal, and kicks it on through. Proud to be a shot through and through. We'll shout our colors, go Teal, go Teal! And then we'll yell out and runs, and our beloved Chanticleers will win this game.
Welcome to the G5 Hive and our next installment of our Worker Bee series, where we deep dive into the G5 college football landscape with the folks that know the teams the best. If you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you're listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review. Today, we'll be taking a look at the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers, who finished 8-5 last season and capped off their season with a 24-14 win over San Jose State in the Hawaii Bowl. They wrapped up their 2024 spring practices on April 13th. We have a special guest joining us today. He is the owner, editor, executive producer of the Coach and Crew Show. He is the coach. He is Charlie Krausse. Charlie can be found at Coach Crew Show on X. Welcome to the show, Charlie.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And oh my gosh, that video you put together, I'm hyped. Little shots up, little double shot. I was at about half of those games you spliced in, if not 3/4 of those games, including that Cure Bowl highlight where Isaiah jumped over the defender at the goal line. The read option by Grace. Oh my gosh, you brought back so many memories already. It's good stuff.
Glad you liked it. Justice does a great job with those every single time. He usually shows them to me before, but not always. That one I don't think I saw yet, so I got to enjoy it with you there.
Yeah, and the game day against BYU at the goal line stand. Another big moment. There was some good stuff.
It was hard. It was that Josh Norman clip wasn't so easy to find video from back then. But yeah.
Well, Charlie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and the Coach and Crew Show?
Well, we started up, all things considered in recent history, right when COVID hit. We got a little frustrated with major networks going political and not covering sports when nothing else was going on. And so we took matters into our own hands, and we only had one rule and one rule only: don't talk politics. And we were just going to talk sports and have fun with it. And it grew instantly. Within almost less than a year later, we found ourselves on the map. It was a couple of us. So we cover various schools between Coastal Carolina, Georgia Tech, Auburn, get a little UCF in, and then locally VCU for college basketball worlds. It's mostly the big two. I would love to be a better college baseball person than I am. Unfortunately, Coastal Carolina just got eliminated last night to Clemson. And as close as I follow it, I may or may not do a good job or a horrible job of reporting out two seasons of intense college basketball and college football back to back, as we've quickly learned, is a lot. And those seems to be the big two. So there's a group of us. We have our own little awards. We have our weekly discussions while in season. This is, I guess, now off season, which is now talking season for college football. So we're starting to ramp up ourselves, and you go to the games, you meet the faces. My buddy in Atlanta for Georgia Tech, he's almost got minor celebrity status. It's kind of cool, and it's just two old has-beens who have I guess, not even a unique perspective, but just we've seen it through 35 years of watching this stuff and knowing the game. You kind of gain a true perspective of the sport and the culture itself all in one. And it makes you see from a different point of view, and then we share our point of view. And more times than not, and I know this sounds a little conceited, we kind of know what we're talking about. It may not be the most popular point of view sometimes, but more times than not, we we'll stay in our little niche. We can usually talk correct about what's going on in our little worlds.
So, why did you become a Coastal Carolina fan? I'm sure that there's fandom from everywhere. But Coastal Carolina.
Well, one, how can you not love Teal Nation? All right. If you've ever been to Myrtle Beach, I mean, come on, you got teal waters and bronze sand. Conway is 7 minutes away, straight up 501. So toured the campus a few times, and then I've had my oldest son has graduated from Coastal Carolina. I think he likes me keeping his roles there more hidden than not. My youngest son is a current sophomore there. So their families, me and my kids, my money all go to Florida, Coastal Carolina. So there's good stuff to follow, and it's just one of those fun teams to root for, where so many people I interact with just love, being secondhand smoke part of Teal Nation, because it's just got all the cool trends, and even people like Ryan McGee when he's on, Marty McGee in the morning. He'll talk heavily about Coastal Carolina. So it's just one of those fun things to be part of, and it allows you to be part of something bigger than yourself.
All right. Well, thank you for that.
All right, let's get to the position where it all starts on offense, and that is the quarterback. The Chanticleers lose the face of the team, Grayson McCall. He transfers over to NC State. I'm assuming he pees red now. That might be a problem that he needs to go see the medical doctor for.
Yes, you might need a shot for that if that's true.
However, last year we got to see our fair share of Ethan Vasco due to injuries that the aforementioned Grayson McCall suffered. We saw Vasco in 8 games, and he counted for over 1,000 yards rushing and throwing. They bring in Noah Kim from Michigan State, and then more recently, after the spring, they bring in Tad Hudson over from North Carolina. How did the quarterback battle shape up in the spring?
So it was never a battle, first off. Well, let's go backwards even a little bit. I don't know if the average person knows this or not, but I do feel obligated because of family, friends reasons with Grayson. He had to transfer. His 2 choices were transfer and make a lot of NIL money, or put your name in the lottery and try the NFL waters. And then that's just the stupid NCAA rules of you're allowed to play, but you just can't play here. And so he had to make a tough choice. And the entire Conway, Coastal Carolina community is fully behind Grayson McCall. He still has a tattoo of a Chanticleer on his leg. He might have to wear a sleeve now over his leg, but he's there. No, to answer your question, the spring, as far as the one goes, it was not a competition. Ethan Vasco is going to be the man, at least for this year. What happens beyond that is beyond that. Let me give you this. So this is what, if I had one surprise, this is the one surprise that I had at the end of the spring practices. Blake Boda, who I thought would be the 2, was named the 3. And this just shows you, I think, of the quality of the quarterback position. I don't think he was too satisfied with being the 3. So he entered the portal, ended up in SEC country at Arkansas. Now, I'm not saying he's going to be at the 1 or maybe even not even at the 2, but the fact that they accepted him from a G5 school to play in SEC and be probably a backup at Arkansas, that says something if he was officially our 3. And so that just tells you about the quality of the 2 and the 1 ahead of him. And Blake Boda got into a couple of games, made some huge key plays on some critical games, converted a real long 3rd and long on one particular game that we needed that drive to score and win. So, and he had a local fan base here that really, and so we wish Blake well. We're not going to talk. There's nothing negative about Blake. He made his decisions, and you've got to, at the end of the day, look for number 1. Even though was hurt to Coastal to lose him. So then, yeah, they picked up the kid from North Carolina afterwards. And my gut feeling is throughout the fall practice, whatever you want to call August, summer practice, those two, Kim from Michigan State and him, will start really duking it out and see who can outperform each other for a solid 2. But it's Ethan's Vasco's job. You only got to see what a third string quarterback could do when he came in because he was thrown in with injuries to Grayson and Jarrett. And he was just forced into the Old Dominion game. And then by the time he had a little bit of prep, he was able to play for the full bowl game at in the Hawaii Bowl. But it's Ethan's job. He finally gets full reps as a full year starter as one. And I'm really curious and really interested to see how he's going to just embrace he was thrusted into 2/3 of the way into the season.
Yeah, he's someone I'm super familiar with. He went to Oscar Smith High School.
Right. He was right there at Oscar Smith. Right.
Yeah, he went to Oscar Smith. He originally committed to Old Dominion, then
Kansas,
then flipped to Kansas, and
then
yeah. I mean, I think he brings a different element than I think either Kim or Hudson do. Kim and Hudson aren't nearly as mobile and much of a dual threat as Vasco is. So he definitely brings that aspect that McCall also had to that offense. And that's just something else defenses have to prepare for. Makes it harder.
Well, and the way it's funny. Yes, he's got legs, and if you saw the bowl game, you saw him have that 175-yarder touchdown run, and he had another one against Old Dominion as well. So yes, he can run, but the way that Beck likes to set things up is use the pass to open up the run. Where a couple years ago with the spread triple option offense that Coach Chadwell ran, it was use the triple option, use the read and the spread, then to therefore open up the pass. So it's an opposite mindset, even though if you look at the run percentages, they end up about the same. So they both run about 55, 56% of the time, but it's a different way of getting there. And yes, his legs do help him a lot.
Moving on to the running game, Coastal lost Reese White to graduation and C.J. Beasley to Georgia State. They bring back their leading rusher from 2023 in Braden Bennett. They also return Max Baltazar and Javin Simpkins. How did that room shape up in the spring?
All right. I don't mean to be quick and short and coy on this one, and I'm not trying to be just whatever. Coastal's not running back you, but they are insert running back here. And that's how they've been since I've known them. It feels like it's always a constant rotation. Last year, I think it was the fourth string running back got the majority of the carries because of injuries. And just it's always been we go deep on running backs. We have multiple running backs that can carry the load and just run it. Braden Bennett, I think he's finally fully healthy. He's going to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest kid on the field. I don't care who you put him up against. So he should be one of the starting backs, but they're going to start 2 backs. And you're going to see a lot of primary carries. But on the average game, you're going to have about 5 or 6 people carry the ball, and that includes little swing runs with the receivers as well, and just little, inside handoffs and some reverses. It's not just a true, here's our number 1 running back, then our number 2 running back. It's a running back by committee system, which I think most of college football has evolved to.
So they brought in a transfer from New Mexico and Christian Washington, and then Mississippi State, who's not on campus yet, Simeon Price. Do you envision them being in that rotation right away, or are they
not initially? I really don't think so initially, just because you need to have the reps. You truly do. And there are positions where you can pick it up faster than others, but I see Bennett and Balthazar being the 1 and 2 to start off initially. Now, what happens in October go forward, so be it. But they're going to get their chances hopefully early. Um, I don't know how much chances they're going to get on week one when we play at Jacksonville State, but I think they'll get some chances early in the season with William and Mary. And then just you take what's given to you, and a lot of it, and a lot of people just don't realize this. It's what you do on the practices that makes your playing time for the Saturdays or Thursdays.
And then, we talked about the quarterback rushing ability. In Tim Beck's first year as head coach and Travis Trickett's first year as the OC, we saw Ethan Vasco earn 39 less rushing yards than the leading rusher. So you talk about, everybody kind of getting a piece of the pie and the pass opening up the run. You got a mobile quarterback. What should we expect the exact same thing here for Ethan Vasco in 2024, or with that kind of a deep? I would say it's a pretty talented and deep quarterback room. Do you see him rushing more because you've got a capable backup, or not as much because you don't want to get him hurt?
I hope not. I hope his numbers are identical over the course of 12 games, even though he only played in whatever you said, 7, 8 with the bowl game. If he's running, it's hopefully by design, where it's like the read option, or if it's a scramble. But Coach Beck had McCall on a pitch count, and the average pitch count of when he was running the ball was 0 called runs per game. Now, there were some of them read options. I'm sure it's going to be the same way with Vesco. It's one of those things, I know I'm right, but I have no way to prove it until after the game is over. I'm sure he's going to want him to run a total of 0 times, but plays set themselves up, and that's why you do have such a thing as called a read. So he does want to limit contacts and limit hits because they are targets for whatever reason. These teams love licking their chops when they see a quarterback just hit that next level of the defense, and they just come in hot.
So the passing game loses its the big two, and Sam Pinckney to graduation, and Swiss Army knife Jared Brown to South Carolina. On top of that, they also lost Tyson Mobley over to Liberty. Now, those 3 guys accounted for 207 targets, almost 53% of the targets in that wide receiver room. They bring back Jamison Tucker and Kyrie Duplessis, among others. How did the wide receivers look in the spring?
So this is my question mark. All right, if you have to take a red ink pen to somewhere on every single team's roster, this will be my mark. Sam, Grandpa Sam, whatever you want, old man Sam, whatever you want to call him, he set the NCAA record for most consecutive games with a catch, the Art Monk record, if you will. Odds are he probably won't make it in the NFL because he's just a little bit older than they want rookie wide receivers. But he's everything you can ask for. And there's games where I feel like he was the only receiver that caught a pass. And then there was a couple of tight ends or, passes out to the running backs. So Sam was a huge loss. Jared Brown, I think everybody saw the writing on the wall his freshman year, the fact that he got a second year in. It was the worst kept rumors that we all knew he was listening to and trying to transfer portal out. So that was not a surprise. Good job. Hey, if South Carolina called and that's where you want to be, best of luck. But Jared also missed a game or two because of injuries and just undisclosed. And, they don't have to be disclosed. So he did miss for undisclosed injury reasons. So, yes, his speed is going to be a loss, and he was a difference maker. And you had a game plan on him, which opened up other things. But there is more to the thing. Now, to answer your question specifically, I'm actually most curious about a guy that just transferred in after spring practices, and I hope I say his name correctly, Malik Maja, the wide receiver transfer portal kid from Penn State. Yes, exactly. I'm curious where he's going to fit in. My gut feeling is give him a couple of games, and then see if he builds his way into the rotation more by the middle half of the season. Um, just because some of these kids weren't on the roster, and I say the word kids because 22-year-old's still a kid. I'm sorry. When you're pushing 50, there's a lot of people that earn the word kid. So I apologize to anybody listening that I'm using the word kid to describe you. But no, Jamison Tucker's coming back. I mean, they still have some viable options. They just weren't the primary choices the previous year. So now it's just time to see if they step up and who does what. And that's going to be the interesting showcase. Is I know Vasco can get him the ball. It's just who's going to be coming down with it and where they. And you know, I'm going to throw these in there as well, but I'm afraid I might be stealing someone's thunder later. Put the tight ends in the same conversation. It's a tight end by committee, where I think the tight ends actually were probably the most improved from the beginning of the spring practices to the end of the spring practices. So you might have your starting one, but I got a feeling all three are going to see playing time pretty much every game this coming season, and it's going to be fun to watch. And who gets the hot hand and start becoming a favorite target, because it's a wide open. Let's find out together type of scenario.
So you mentioned MIGA. They also brought in Seneca McKee from UNLV, and then Cameron Wright from East Mississippi Community College. Anything you can tell us about either of those two, and maybe they will have any kind of contribution here in 2024?
So I don't know much about the first guy, but the kid from the community college, there's quite a few of them that are in the watch this category. You've never heard of them. You don't know anything about them. And if you do, you're lying, unless you're a family member or they grew up next door to you. But the way that Coastal took the transfer portal is, for the most part, they look for kids stepping up. So as they're losing someone like a Jared Brown to South Carolina, most people would make the argument a G5 school is here and a step up is an SEC school. Well, Coastal took the same mindset. We're going to take the best players from the 1AA or the D3 level, whatever you want to call it, the FC levels or the D3 levels, and we're going to put them on our roster. And that's where some of these players, and I got some defensive names I'm really curious about as well, that are really interesting to see how they're going to look come game day, how they play out. And so now you want to see them go live with real competition and not just controlled scrimmages and stuff like that. So it's going to be a good watch. I'm not going to say besides, I feel like Tucker will be one of the three starting wide receivers. He's probably going to be a deep threat. Other than that, I'm not really sure who you could honestly say will be absolutely, he's going to be a one. He's going to be an every down receiver. I think it's a wide open battle. And, unless you're in that offensive coaching staff room, your guess is as good as anybody else's.
We talked a little bit about Jared Brown and the kind of the role he played in this offense in the past. Is there anybody on the team that you think maybe is a 1-for-1 replacement, or it's going to be more of a, hey, this guy does this and this guy does that and this guy does that?
I think it's going to be more what you just described is, okay, on X scenario, it's going to be person A. Now, these incoming freshmen who got to graduate in December from high school and got the full spring practices, they very well could step up and earn a role as well. I mean, that wide receiver room is so deep. There's at least 10 on there, and they're going to have to establish the depth of the wide receivers, and they know who they are going to be the front runners. But when everybody else is getting equal looks and just it's going to be, like I said, I don't need to be coy, but I'm also not going to just say, oh yeah, mark this kid down as going to be a starter when nothing's been released, and you know, Coastal Carolina kind of does that on purpose. Coach Beck, love him to death, great personality, but there's some things he will not do. And one, he's not going to give you wall art. He also wants to try to keep everything close chested to be for gamesmanship purposes, and he just doesn't want to be like put into gotcha situations. And he's afraid, not afraid, but he doesn't want someone to say, "Oh, well, you did this, so gotcha. Now we can throw that against you." He's very self-conscious of how everything is done, and everything is done with a purpose. And so the fact that y'all were talking earlier how no depth chart is released and no initial, going into summer what it's looking like, not the least bit surprised. In fact, that's 100% intentional.
And then you did mention Tucker, you feel comfortable with him being out there. Do you think he's going to be on the outside there, or if you were coaching, where would you put him?
So if I'm using Tucker, what I would use him is I would start him possibly in a slot position, but on the out. But yes, but he's going to be running a lot of go routes. What they would do is run him as start him in the slot receiver and then bring him out wide or just go post. And then you fake a run or something over the middle to a tight end, and then you've got the guy streaking down on a little wheel route. I believe now y'all can back me up on this, and someone can look it up and whatever because I don't have the stats memorized. But I'm pretty sure he led the team in average yards per reception because he was the deep ball threat. They would just throw over his head and he would just run and catch. And he was getting something like 19.8 yards per reception this past season. So I do feel confident they're going to continue using him in that speedster role of just get him into open field and let open field make play.
All right, let's move over to the tight ends. Coastal returns its starting tight end from a year ago in Kendall Carr. They also lost Matt. Was it? What was it? Alimo to graduation. If you were to describe the tight end usage to somebody who's never caught a game, you kind of alluded to it a little bit earlier, but how would you describe it?
The tight end is the hidden gem that's in Coastal Carolina offense, and it's been that way since Isaiah Likely, now with the Baltimore Ravens, has been there. You have all this shiny, bright objects, and you have all these race cars and all that kind of stuff, but then you've got the tight end position, which is your workhorse, there in part of the offense, and he eats up space, and you have to put somebody on him. Sometimes they're good for 4 to 5 yards, and that's it because if it's just a small little possession route that they're running. Other times you leave them over the middle, and now they've got 25, 30, 50 yards right there as well. They're a position, very rarely are they not going to be on the field. And if they are on the field, it's because they're going 5 deep or 5 wide to run all deeps. The tight end position, I think, is going to be one of the positions this year specifically, especially early on. And if you look back to the bowl game as well, or right before you get ramping up to the bowl game, that they used heavily with Ethan Vasco to help build his confidence. It might not be much. It might be, 4 receptions for 13 yards. But I promise you, look how well those receptions are made. They're made on 3rd and 1 or, 2nd and 2. Those type of key move the chain type of plays. And then every now and then they're just going to leave him open. He's going to turn the corner and you get yourself chunk yardage or big play, whatever those stat categories you want to call it. But yeah, like I said, all 3 of the tight ends right now will be seeing playing time. Some will obviously get more than others, and they all can just bring down the ball. And so I do not think that Ethan's going to be like, oh, my tight end's in, they're just an extra 6 blocker. No, it's going to be go out, get that pass, and just bring it down and then turn up field.
So moving over to the offensive line, which looks like it might be one of the strengths of the offense, they bring back 4 or 5 starters and lots of depth to go with it. They do lose left guard Will McDonald to California, but return everyone else. How did the offensive line look in the spring?
So they might have lost Will McDonald, but they gained 15 yards and unsportsmanlike penalties back. So I think he led the nation the past 2 years in unsportsmanlike penalties. So God bless him. Uh, he was a very passionate player, and he would defend his players. Unfortunately, after the ball, after the whistle, and he would usually, bulldoze somebody after the whistle. No, you're right. I believe it's projected four starters returning, and then they've got 2 transfers coming in as well, just for straight depth. One from the school I've never heard of, UTPB, University of Texas, not Pine Bluff, but something. Heston Edwards, he's coming in, and he'll be depth. And then I believe Sawyer Gorham. He's going to be an O lineman. He'll be depth as well, coming in from Texas. So the offensive line last year was constantly a work in progress. They've gone through that hardship, and hopefully this season you see the progression of that O line maturing now together. Because, golly, last year they probably had something in the neighborhood of like 30 starts combined, 40 starts combined. Now that number should be much higher. I haven't looked yet. I haven't done the math, but that was an area of concern last year that hopefully is sliding to the area of strength, especially on pass protection, because last year it felt like it was on some of these games. In that UCLA game, if you saw that one, you got a 1-second drop, and then you got to get rid of the ball because just next level athlete was already burning past inexperienced offensive linemen.
You mentioned about Sawyer, and he was probably brought in for depth. So who do you think is going to take over that starting left guard position? You think it's Anthony Walton or somebody else?
I still think he's going to be on the outside.
Okay.
That's a good question of who's going to beef up the interior. And it very well, they really could just put up a new face inside. My gut feeling is that who's ever going to be the new person is going to go to the guard position, and or slide him over at center and just start one of the younger guys at center, and slide over. I do know that this is going to be a heavily combated position once they finally lock in who the ones are, because as y'all were just mentioning, is this now a strength? It darn near close to being a strength of the offense is the offensive line. I'm looking at their former depth chart now, and they've got 15 guys listed, top to bottom. And any one of them can play at least two of the 3 positions, or 4 of the 5 positions if you want to count left side and right side separate. It's going to be really interesting how they play it out, and just who fills in the spot opened up from. Oh golly, I've already forgot.
Will McDonald.
Yes, thank you, Will. Oh gosh, from heading out to California, and he's in the same position that Grayson's in. One of those you can still play, but you can't play here type of rules. So good for him for being able to add some depth to California's lineup.
All right, Charlie, if you had to pick an offensive player to have a breakout type season here in 2024, who'd you pick?
So this is going to sound cliche-ic, but it's going to be Ethan Vasco. And I'm going to go back to what I said earlier, and I mean this sincerely. Ethan came on as a third stringer and got thrusted into this stuff and was just, hey, give him part of the playbook and let's just make him feel comfortable and let's just get him through the season and let's go try to win a bowl game. Well, they did exactly just that. Now he's had the off season. He's had the spring workouts. What was really cool, I want to get this cheap plug in. They had special forces come in February for 48 or 72 hours, waking everybody up at 2 a.m., putting them in the pool at 3 a.m. because the lifeguards were not willing to go into the Atlantic Ocean in February, even though the special forces unit wanted to put everybody in the ocean in February. Do some serious leadership training and just accountability and ownership and just, playing for the person next to you and putting all these through these great, awesome leadership exercises. So now how's that transcend to come Saturdays in September? We'll find out. But I think that helped build a lot of depth and maturity. And it also gave Coach Beck a real quick look of, more importantly, who's not on the roster. And if when you're having to have some GA or some kid on your assistant on your team go knock on your dorm room or drive down to your apartment and make sure you're at class, that's not the person they want on this roster. So put those, that hopefully those transitions have happened. But Ethan Vasco matured all during that spring, all during those leadership exercises. And now he's been working with the ones this whole time. This is finally his first season as a true number one quarterback. And I don't know if there's enough appreciation there yet for the average person. Oh, Vasco's number one. Good enough. Check. Let's talk about some diamond in the rough. Well, the diamond in the rough is actually Ethan Vasco allowing himself to showcase at a higher potential.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100% on that. Let's move over to the defensive side of the ball and talk about the guys up front along the defensive line. They lose their top sack man from a year ago in Michael Mason. They also lose Kendi Roberts, Emmanuel Johnson, Jaquan Griffin to graduation. They do bring back some experienced guys like Will Whitson, Alan Henry, Clinton Anakwuru, among others. How did the defensive line look in the spring, and did anyone stand out?
All right. So now we're talking about my favorite position. I love the defensive line position as well. And it was the defensive side that took the next step up that allowed 2023 to end the way that it did. If you watch that bowl game, it was the defensive side that really stepped up and almost pitched a shutout until the fourth quarter. So I've got a name for you for defensive line. We'll see. Well, I got two names for you. We'll see where they land. I think one's going to be an instant impact. Ebe Diarwa, and I know I said it wrong. He's coming in from Shippensburg College. I think he's going to be instant defense, just add water. If there's a name you want to watch out for, Michael Mason, Lincoln Kennedy, they earned their keep and they great. But this could be the next one. And then another name I might be a year in advance on for this one. I'm hoping more so he should be a redshirt freshman this year, is Faraj, and I got that part right. Faraj Titikapunya. I know I just royally messed up that name, but I've yet to hear a single coach even call him by his last name. So I don't think their confidence level is high. He's a defensive lineman from Germany. He's apparently one of Germany's best defensive prospects. He fully redshirted last year, so he should be a redshirt freshman this year. Both of them are beast and a half twists, and I'm really anxious and excited to see their opportunities. But Coach Brumbaugh is the defensive line coach. He was an All-American defensive tackle himself at Auburn. Went on, played for the Tennessee Titans, and then his ACL and knees took over before he got into coaching. He's coached up that defensive line phenomenal in a year and a half that he's been on campus. That's going to be one of the bigger strengths is the defensive line. And even though they might not be household names anymore, they're quickly going to be, assuming that I can learn how to pronounce them correctly.
The linebacking crew stayed pretty well intact. They did have a big loss with JT Killen transferring to Eastern Michigan. But he was the leading tackler amongst that linebacking crew. They bring back Shane Bruce, Braylon Ryan, Trey Brown, Wyatt Gideon, and then Joe Cash, among others. What did that linebacking group look like in the spring?
They're going to be solid. They're going to be solid. They're going to be who they are. They're the type is go get football. Okay. They're not going to win any 40-yard dashes. We're not going to talk about anybody's 40-yard dash time. But we can measure heart and we can measure hustle. And that's what these guys bring. Shane Bruce is going to be around that. He's just a hawk. He's going to be around that ball 24/7 and on every play. It wouldn't surprise me if you see a little C on his jersey again this season. That linebacker core came into the season with some huge question marks because the year beforehand, all the showcase and pomp and circumstance that was before them graduated off, and now it's like, okay, who are these guys? Well, they spent the season, especially the back half of the season. I cannot emphasize this enough. And if you can, I would like to throw this in here. There's my 2 cents on, when you take over a new coaching staff. Coach Beck, this was year 1 for him. I personally call it year 0. He was hired less than 48 hours after the beatdown loss of the Birmingham Bowl to East Carolina. You get 0 recruiting class that year, okay? All he tried to do was save recruits, and then you get your spring recruiting class if need be. So this was his first year of coaching, and he was coaching other people's players. So it took them X amount of time to look and adjust. And if you compare the front half of the season to the back half of the season, that's where coaching is made. That's where the improvements are made along the way. Like I said, I don't care who you list out. You can list out all 14 of them. None of them are going to win a speed competition, but every single one of them can get to that ball every single time, and they're going to make plays. And before you know it, you're looking at 3 and outs and 2 and a turnover, and more just a lot of possessions ending in punts. And there's no coincidence after a while what's happening.
Who do you think is going to take that JT Killen role there in 2024?
It might be just a slide. I almost think Shane Bruce will, to be honest with you.
Okay.
And slide him over into that spot. I don't know, and then you could put Trey into. I think it's going to be everybody shifts a position now, even though you're going to have 3 or 4 of the same faces on field, but they're all going to be in different roles. I don't know. I think you're going to see a lot of the same starters, but just with new homes. And that's just my gut feeling talking, but I could be dead wrong. But, I also drink the Shane Bruce Kool-Aid. So, there might be some a little bias coming in of where I think he can excel and fulfill roles, because I think he's going to be one of the people that leads the team in tackles this year.
Moving over to the defensive backfield, they return Juan Powell, Avion Jones, Matthew McDoom, cool name by the way.
Yeah, he's on the all-name team.
Courtney Eubanks, Dre Pinkney, Tobias Fletcher, and others. They do lose their leading tackler from the defensive backfield, and Clayton Isbell, as well as Keontae Lusk. How did the defensive backfield, the cornerbacks and safeties look in the spring?
but they've got a lot of returners, and this like Keontae Lusk, Jenkins, obviously McDoom. McDoom is one of their highest rated. They're going to probably try to leave him on an island this year. I was really big on him last year. Wanted to see him do more. I think he's going to be given that opportunity this year to do such. And then, even I don't know, Abe, Timoni will be given some more opportunities. I believe I think this unit specifically, yes, lost some, but lost the least. They've got a lot of faces that were thrown into the fire, and let's see who can sink and who can swim. And just a lot of people coming back that can help figure out how just where coverages are going to be and just who's going to be what. I think it's probably going to McDoom for sure is going to be on an island. I can very rarely am I having confidence on giving y'all positions and stuff just because I don't want to say something and he doesn't know what he's talking about. But Matthew McDoom has been on that field since a freshman, and most freshmen take the year of red shirt, and he's now going to be probably like the featured cornerback, if you will, and just whoever your one is, McDoom's going to be on them. And then I still hope McDoom lines up for punt and kick returns as well, because he's got that next level breakaway speed, and hopefully he can get some touches there as well. And it wouldn't surprise me, going back to the running back conversation, if you see McDoom on a reverse or two.
Interesting. Is there anyone you think might step up into the safety role that was vacated with Isabel graduating?
I knew you were going to ask me that one, and I've been thinking about that one long and hard. I'm curious if they're going to just allow like you shift some players, like maybe Gillespie moves over into a safety or and if Eubanks beefs up a little bit, he could probably go. It's gonna again, and I hate sounding naive, but until we see more of a depth chart given, it's all just pure speculation, and that's just Coastal Carolina in a nutshell. Is just we're gonna keep everything and just allow and make you figure it out and make you guess, especially with Jacksonville State opening up, and they're gonna make Jacksonville State figure this out.
They brought in a couple transfers not too long ago in the defensive backfield with.
Well, you know what? Shoot, you're right. I'm sorry. And I wrote down this, and I forgot to look at my own notes. I apologize.
Oh, you're good.
This kid Gordon from USC. That might be your hidden solution. I just don't know how far along he is in reps with the defense and knowing the full playbook, but it could be his to earn.
All right. Well, Coach, if you had to pick a defensive player to be a breakout type person here in 2024, who are you picking?
Well, I think you already know this one as well. Golly, I asked my son to help me out with his name initially, and just because I still can't, but it's Yves Diarwa, the edge rusher. If he's given his opportunities, I think he could be just beast mode and stud to watch. Just in that edge bandit, whatever you want to call it, position.
I'm going to go with Ibrahim Diawara is what I think could be.
Diarwa, yes. Yeah.
Awesome.
All right. With spring practice now over, which position group or groups do you think is the most concerning?
Let's go back to where I circled at the very end. It's the wide receivers. It's the most unknown. I don't want to know if it's most concerning, but it's the most unknown because there's just so many openings of replacements and so many people get to showcase now of, hey, we've got multiple openings. Earn your spot. Earn your spot. I mean, this is everything you could want if you're a wide receiver. You've got at least two starting positions, if not, you could argue three starting positions available. Go earn your keep. Go earn your playing time. There's no reasons why you can't be the next one. On our side of the fence, and when to help people understand, it leaves the biggest question mark. I don't want to say concern.
Just the unknown.
Yeah, it's the unknown is the wide receiver. Concern, I'm anxiously excited to see the true improvement of the offensive line. But until I see that, yeah, I'm not, if full disclosure, I do have concern, but it should be a lot better from day one go forward.
So they've already brought in a lot through the transfer portal since spring ended. Is there any particular position you think they might still be looking at, or they're just going to bring in like maybe a best available type person?
I don't think so unless they know somebody that's either hurt. But at this point of the season, where I think you're almost bringing, if you're bringing in somebody now, it's probably for depth or even the 2025 season.
So, we talked about maybe some opportunities that the Coastal can get a little bit better at, but what do you think the main strength of this team is?
It's, believe it or not, it's flip flopped. Over the couple of years ago, you're thinking of high octane offense, 55 points per game, and all that kind of stuff. Now the strength is actually on the defensive side. I truly believe that. And then countermeasuring that, making it harder for teams to score, is this team's ball control. And as boring as that sounds, ball control possession. Now, if they get a two play drive and score on 65 yards in 2 plays, congratulations. I don't think that was the intended purpose or attempt for them, but I think their two biggest strengths are the entire defensive side of the ball and hawking to the ball and just limiting possessions, and then just how effective they are running the offense. When you had the Jamie Chadwell, you had efficient running the offense, and it was just quick scores and bam, and look how many points we can make. Now the word you use is effective of the offense, and it's just a different mindset, and it's getting hard to stop. It's almost, and I don't want to compare it to the Army Academy or the Naval Academy, but it's in that almost that same mindset. Get the ball from us. We dare you.
That sounds something that I'm all too familiar with, living very, very close to Iowa City and watching a lot of Hawkeye football.
Hey, but our best player just got drafted by the Bears.
Yes, yes.
When it comes to recruitment of new players and retention of existing players, the NIL and the transfer portal are huge in today's world. What kind of impacts have you seen those have there at Coastal Carolina?
Well, and I think I'm assuming 4 out of every 5 people are going to say the same thing as I am, and the NIL is just crushing people. So they're honest. They're straight up number one. If that's your question, number one is how much money am I going to make here? This is not the home for you. All right. I heard the head coach of UTSA say that exact same quote on an interview earlier in the off season as well. So it's affecting all these schools fully. Coastal Carolina is in the process and is hired and is creating a whole NIL department, and I think it's gonna make some waves and make some headlines and make some things happen. But in the short term, immediate of how it's handled, I mean, every year you're having to re-recruit your own players, and you're having to go out and find new players on top of all your other job responsibilities as well. And then these kids need to learn about, hey, if you're signing this contract, you're going to have to be paying taxes on this stuff. And you're going to be held accountable to all their rules and stuff. And it's not going to be on our shoulders. It's a whole hot mess, and I know this phrase has been used by many people. It's the complete wild, wild west out there with this stuff. And Coastal's I mean, every school has their own internal policies. How Duke or how Georgia Tech handles it, it's probably different than how Coastal handles it, which is different than how LSU handles it. They're maneuvering through it, and they're teaching themselves as they go. And now here we are 2 years into it. You've obviously learned from it. As far as recruiting goes, there are NIL opportunities for a lot of these guys. I've seen Dial soap commercials. I've seen Bojangle commercials. So they have opportunities. Let's be clear about that. But if this is your number one priority, I mean, even the kids at Alabama, and I think that's why Saban got out. They don't want them on that roster. If this is when mom says, "All right, how are we going to get paid?"
Does Coastal have an NIL setup? Or it's not a collective setup?
And that's what they've just started initiating. They're almost restructuring. I don't want to say their internal infrastructure and org charts, but they've created a whole new setup of this. And I don't know if it's fully implementation yet, but it has just started get going. It's going. I think Coastal is one of the, as far as G5 schools goes, on the front end. I really do think they're on the front end of this, as compared to some other schools for sure. But where their collective agreements are going to be and how they're going to treat it and how they're going to handle it, and from all sports across the board, the girls volleyball team, how the tennis team's going to be part of it. It's all going to be tied together with one giant bow, and it's not just going to be Coastal football or Coastal baseball. That's part of this process. And even Coach Gilly, if you heard his interview after they got eliminated by Clemson last night, his big thing was just this NIL thing. And I mean, if you're of a certain age or higher, you can't stand it, and you're trying to figure out how to help these kids. And just, I get the example he gave, just don't give the kid the money fully, build a trust and help them through this process so that they can learn from all of these experiences. But you're giving these 18, 19-year-olds all this money, and they don't have the maturity yet to handle all this stuff. And there's no right answer for a soundbite if you're looking for. I honestly think I think Coastal is on the front side of this process for the G5 schools, and they've definitely got a plan in place and they're working for it. I just don't know where they are as far as the true implementation of it goes.
And like you mentioned earlier there, Charlie, with kind of the player retention, and you still got to go out and recruit your guys. It seems like this head coach is becoming more and more like a general manager. They got to go out and do their own fundraising, and they're kind of getting away from the X's and O's. Coach Beck, there, offensive-minded guy. Do you see that at Coastal? Is he stepping back and being more of a GM, or is he still in there dialing up plays?
I think he's trying to tackle all responsibilities because that's what's being thrown on him. And until they hire a person that's just exclusively the NIL type of GM, player personnel director type of thing, until that role is fully created and implemented, it's it's on him. He's, it's just one of those things he's working through. Now he utilize his assistants and the AD and all that kind of stuff? Absolutely, but it's not fair to these coaches that, hey, you already work 122 hours a week, now also do this, and we're going to expect you to do it to the best and hold you to the highest standards, and there's going to be no errors and there's going to be no scrutiny along the way as well. And why are you failing at game planning uh, after you've done your NIL recruitings?
So I'm kind of curious, since you got a new coach last year, did you see a change in personnel? Are there like more coaches and whatnot with this coaching staff as opposed to Chadwell's coaching staff, or are they about the same?
It's the same.
Okay.
Coastal only, you know, however many is on staff is what their paid spots are. And then you have your GAs and even your SAs who help out. And it they would love to hire their SAs to become GAs and their GAs to become assistant coaches, but and I don't mean this as a negative, but this is where a school like Florida State or an SEC type of school is reasons why they are the SECs and the Florida States of the world is because they have more resources and they can have more coaching staffs. Because these kids on staff that are learning the process and have the headset on and up at 3 a.m. to make sure that the gym is open at 4 a.m. and they're doing all the legwork uh, and just being part of the process. They're learning and cutting their teeth the right way, but at the end of the day, they're just the unpaid assistants who are learning through experience and being part of this internship, but they're not true assistant coaches.
So the 2024 season has ended. The dust has settled. What has to happen, Charlie, for you to say this year was a success?
Considering that, was it a NCAA record 11 Sunbelt schools made a bowl game last year?
Yeah.
There's your floor. You got to make a bowl game. All right. You got to make a bowl game. Um, y'all, I don't know if you've broken out Temple yet or not. I read somewhere that Temple's going to be a bottom feeding team possibly. Then I read somewhere else that they're going to be middle of the pack. Well, game 3 they're playing Temple. Game 1 they're on the road at Jacksonville State, where okay, yes, Myrtle Beach is heat, but you haven't experienced Alabama heat. Now, thank God it's a Thursday night game, but then you've got that speed up. We're going to snap the ball every 16 seconds and run the triple option on you, triple option. And hopefully at the end of the day, just better talent prevails over that game. But I'm nervous about that one right out the gate because that's like playing Army game 1. Yes, you got 6 months to prepare for them, but you're not going to see that type of style the rest of the season. And I feel like Coastal had to experience that the hard way last year. Is just so many different styles, so many consecutive different weeks. Throw in a home game with UVA, and then you get the 1AA opponent of William and Mary. There's your first 4 weeks, and then you start your conference schedule after that. And the conference schedule is, I say this just to be safe, but I also say in full honesty, no one's going undefeated in conference play.
The Sun Belt, I think, top to bottom, is one of the best conferences in G5.
It is. I mean, they've got road games at JMU and at Troy. JMU, unfortunately, has put up close to over 100 points or at 100 points on us the past 2 years combined. Troy's got a new coaching staff, so that's going to be an interesting to see. Marshall, I thought last year they were 1 year away, and now Chad Pennington's son is now taking fully over at quarterback, so that'll be interesting to see how they go. So there's 3 of your road games right there, and then you close the season at Georgia State, who their coach left for Chip Kelly like reasons. Um, so we'll see how that goes. So 4 tough road games there. Plus, you have a Thursday nighter against what's quickly becoming an arch rival in Appalachian State, and then your homecoming weekend is against Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, and they're always a traditional Sun Belt power as well. I don't mean to discredit Old Dominion, but I just gave you 6 tough games. If Old Dominion's the 7th toughest, then oh golly, that's a
The Sun Belt's a
so
tough conference, man.
no one's going undefeated. The floor is bowl game, and then your ceiling and the goal is play for the conference championship. And this year, I speak with high confidence. The conference champion is going to be part of the college football playoff.
I mean, I think I agree with you from a pure talent standpoint. I think the Sun Belt champion, whoever that is, should be is one of the probably top 2 talented teams, like on the field talented. I just fear that the same thing's going to happen as last year. Is Liberty's going to run roughshod over Conference USA, and they're going to have a great record, and they're going to, that's what my fear is.
13-0 with the 133.
Yeah. I mean, they do play App State, so that is a good thing. Like,
sorry, 131 strength of schedule.
If App State, beats them, and then it gives them that loss, and maybe that'll help things. But I think it's hard to say that they won't have the best record in the G5, but I don't think they're the best team.
No, I think Sun Belt is going to be a major strength. Now, if everybody goes 8-4, we shot ourselves in the foot, and there is no true one. So yes, you're right, 100% about that. But I still think a 9-2 Sun Belt team could still be the strongest team. American Conference or someone else, if they have a 10-1, okay, so be it. I do like the Sun Belt's chances, though. Somebody's going to somehow maneuver through it, unless everybody
hopefully.
just equally.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie, is there anything else that you want to share or think we should know about this 2024 Coastal Carolina football team that we didn't talk about already?
Well, I made sure I got my cheap plugs talking points in various segments. I really wanted to highlight the off-season training with the special forces and not being allowed in the Atlantic Ocean, so they had to settle for the swimming pool because the lifeguards went in blackballed them. That was great. I did want to highlight Ethan Vasco. I also wanted to highlight Coach Beck, and this is his first real year of recruiting, and how you do nothing but save recruits on year 0. And so that on year 0, he won a bowl game, and I don't know if enough appreciation is given or credit is given to that scenario, especially in today's world of college football. So I think that was actually a phenomenal achievement. I was actually more excited for that victory, even though I wasn't there, and I was at the Cure Bowl. And that was such an emotional victory when they beat Northern Illinois in the Cure Bowl a couple years ago. But just the storyline of how they earned the Hawaii Bowl, I don't think got enough credit of the start to finish, from first-year coach saving recruits, third-string quarterback in, and then just shutting down San Jose State for 75%, 80% of the ball game, and then pulling away further at the end to capture, and that's if memory serves correctly from what they were telling us, Coastal Carolina playing in the Hawaii Bowl was the furthest distance traveled team for a bowl game in bowl game history.
Yeah, that makes sense. You went from, one of the furthest points along the East Coast all the way to Hawaii.
And everybody did not get back until Christmas Eve night about 11 o'clock Eastern time. So, uh, for those who had to connect flights and fly home or make that long drive for wherever they live locally, you literally were showing up Christmas morning, straight from the plane ride back from the bowl game. And I don't know if enough people appreciated that whole aspect of what Coach Beck did last year, and I could see that just being heavily underlooked and definitely underappreciated, just because, no other reason.
Well, Charlie, we want to thank you again for sharing your time and knowledge with us today. We greatly appreciate it.
Well, that's awesome, guys. Thank you so much for reaching out to me. Hopefully, I have some insight. I know I wasn't able to give you who do you think starting of this exposition, and I'm not going to just throw names to be throwing names. I apologize to you for not giving you what you fully wanted, but they
Hey,
hide that
you
stuff.
gave us plenty, man. We appreciate it.
All right, well, good. So,
All right.
thank
Well,
you.
if you're watching us on YouTube, please hit that like and subscribe button. And if you are listening to us in podcast form, please rate and review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. Thank you for all your support. And until the next time, we are the G5 Hive.